Before we'll go over a little bit of sichas of this afternoon, we'll just mention briefly some of the things in Yonim which the Rebbe spoke about on Shavuos. In the Farbrengen of Shavuos, second day Shavuos, the Rebbe referred to the fact that there's a custom in Lubavitch that Shavuos is referred to as Chag HaMatzois. But Matzois is an abbreviation. It abbreviates Moirei Tzedek, which means Rabbanim. And this refers to a custom which goes back to many, many years ago, that in Lubavitch, the Rabbanim, the Chassidische Rabbanim, would come to the Rebbe for the Yontif of Shavuos. And as the Rebbe explained at length, it was impossible for a Rav to leave his community for Pesach, because there's so many shilas in halacha that a Rav has to be consulted with on Pesach, so how could a Rav leave his hometown? The same Sukkos, there are also many, many shilas regarding Sukkos. And on top of that, says the Rebbe, there was a custom that the Rav would sell esrogim. When the Rav would sell esrogim, this would be something pretty substantial for his income, for his family, to provide him with parnasa. And truth is, when we look into the Shulchan Aruch, we will see that there's many halachas of Hilchas Pesach. There are many halachas of Hilchas Sukkos. However, regarding Shavuos, there are very, very few halachas. And the halachas of Shavuos are added on in one siman at the end of Hilchas Pesach. So Shavuos really does not have any special shilas that it entails. And therefore it was most convenient time for a Rav to travel to the Rebbe would be on Shavuos. So that is why this Yontif was referred to in Lubavitch as the Chag HaMatzois. But Matzois in the sense that Matz, an abbreviation. It abbreviates that this is the Yontif when the Moirei Tzedek would come to the Rebbe. The Rebbe added on also that Matz abbreviates Mashiach Tzidkenu. And when Mashiach will also be a Moirei Tzedek, he will also guide Yidden what to do. Rabbi asked that all those Rabbanim that are present, as well as all those that have smicha or are worthy of having smicha, should all say L'chaim. And this should be the final L'chaim before the coming of Mashiach. The Rabbi also spoke about the fact that Shavuos unites three very special people. First of all, Moshe Rabbeinu, because Moshe was the one that Kibel Torah Sinai. Moshe was the person who was involved in seeing to it that the Yidden received the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shavuos is also the Yortzeit of David HaMelech. And Shavuos is also the Yortzeit of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, David HaMelech, when we say the Yortzeit is Shavuos, naturally it is the first day of Shavuos, because in times of David HaMelech there was only one day of Shavuos. However, regarding the Baal Shem Tov, there is discussion whether it is the first day of Shavuos or the second day of Shavuos. But there was an expression from the Alter Rebbe regarding the passing of the Baal Shem Tov, where the Alter Rebbe referred to it, B'yoim harevi'i nitlu hama'oros. Nitlu with a tes. That on Wednesday, the illuminators were taken away. This refers to an expression in Chazal that B'yoim harevi'i nitlu hama'oros with a tov. That on Wednesday, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has hanged up, has instituted the sun and the moon that illuminate the world. So the Alter Rebbe is referring to the same expression, but the word nitlu can also be written with a tes, and when nitlu is written with a tes, it has the opposite meaning. It means it was taken away. So the Alter Rebbe says that on a Yom HaRevi'i, Nitlu HaMa'oros, the Baal Shem Tov who illuminated the world, was taken away from us on a Yom HaRevi'i, on a Wednesday. Now we know, based on the ruling of Loi Bedu Pesach, that Pesach cannot come out on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, the first day of Pesach. The first day of Shavuos always comes out on the following day of the first day, Pesach. So if the Alter Rebbe is using the expression that the Baal Shem Tov passed away on a Wednesday, Wednesday could only be the first day Shavuos. The second day Shavuos can never come out on a Wednesday. So from here we see that the Baal Shem Tov also passed away on the first day of Shavuos. as far as we are concerned, what is the Horoah to us that on this day unites these three giants? Says the Rebbe that this is a reminder for us to increase, to be meisiv primarily in the area of chitas, and to make sure that we are careful and observing chitas on a daily basis. Chitas has Chumash, which relates to Moshe Rabbeinu, Tehillim, which relates to David HaMelech, and the Tanya, which is the writing of the Alter Rebbe, but it's the writings of the Alter Rebbe which are based on the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. In fact, there is a haskame given on the Tanya from Rabbi Yehuda Leib HaKohen, the Rebbe refers to it, where he writes, Uka'eis, and now, Yismach Yisrael, Bihigolis Divrei Kodshay. Let Yisrael be happy when his holy words are being revealed. And the Rebbe says that the pshat in this writing is that he's referring to the Baal Shem Tov, that by the Alter Rebbe's writing the Tanya, the Torah, the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, is being revealed. And therefore, Rebbe says that on the day of Shavuos, it's an opportune time to remind everybody to strengthen ourselves in the learning of Chitas. In the Farbrengen of this afternoon, Rebbe referred to the fact that we have learned Parshas Naso today. And the relationship of Parshas Naso to the Shabbos of after Matan Torah is very obvious by the fact that the Taich of Naso means elevation. And it is through Matan Torah that Yidden were elevated. And in fact, not only is it that we read Naso close by to Matan Torah, Parshas Bamidbar, as it's brought out in Paskim, also is always read before Matan Torah. And says the Rebbe, the Indian of Matan Torah is a combination of the concept of Bamidbar and the concept of Naso. And this is reflected very strongly in the fact that the Torah was given on Har Sinai. Regarding Har Sinai, Chazal tell us, the Nomich Mikol Toraya, it was the lowest of all mountains. So on one hand we see Torah was given on a mountain. On the other hand we see it was the lowest of mountains, which stresses the fact how Torah requires from us to be humble, the concept of bittul, and on the other hand we are supposed to have a certain firmness and a certain strength and a certain elevation, which all of this we gain through Torah. So on one hand it's the concept of Naso, while on the other hand it's the concept of Midbar, which Midbar reflects the concept of bittul, v'nafshi ka'ofa la'koil tiyeh, which this is what Torah stands for. And as we go on in the Tefillah, Psach libi b'seirasecha, when can our hearts be opened for Torah? When it is v'nafshi ka'ofa la'koil tiyeh, when my soul is as dust. In other words, the Indian of bittul. Where is the Indian of bittul? In the strongest way reflected, that's the concept of a midbar. A midbar has nothing of its own. The idea of bittul. But at the same time, we have to know that Torah demands from us an Indian of Nesius Roish, an Indian of an elevation. And this elevation of Naso, which is discussed in the Chazarah which we read today, even though the Chazarah refers to Shevet Levi, but nonetheless this had an effect on all the Yidden. Because as we find today, that tefillah today replaces korbanos, even though in korbanos we know that primarily kohanim were involved. Also Leviim took part in korbanos. Even Yisraelim also took part, but the participation of Yisraelim was no way can it be compared to the involvement of the kohanim and the Leviim. Nonetheless, when it comes to tefillah, everybody is equal: kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim. The same when we're talking about this hayroah, which we are taking out of the Indian of Naso Yisroish, B'nai Yisrael, the elevation which Matan Torah is accomplishing in each and every one of us. This is not only to Leviim, not only to Kohanim. This is something which relates to each and every Yid. And as we will be learning to Mincha, we begin the Parsha of Bahaloischa. What's the Indian of Bahaloischa? Bahaloischa, there the Torah talks about the menorah. The menorah brought lichtigkeit to the entire world, and the menorah was of seven candles. It was actually candles. It was 7 wicks of oil, And as it's explained in Chassidus, that this represents the 7 categories in Avodas Hashem amongst Yidden. But nonetheless, we say that the entire menorah had to be of one unit. Miksha Achazav Torah. So we see again, there are divisions of Yidden, but all of these divisions wind up being united all together. The same here, we're talking about various divisions of Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim. But nonetheless, it unites, all of Yidden are united. Miksha Achas, all of Yidden are one. Here the Rebbe mentioned also, we find regarding Birchas Kohanim, we also find various minhagim by Yidden. There are those communities that have Birchas Kohanim every day. There are those communities that have Birchas Kohanim every Shabbos, and there are those communities, as we do, that have Birchas Kohanim only on Yontif. But again, being that these are all minhagei Yisrael, which Yidden are an Am Echad, a one nation, so again, it unites all of Yidden. All of Yidden still, even though there are various minhagim, still Yidden wind up being totally united. And especially after, as we say in Birchas HaTorah every day, after the Rebishter is Bacha Banu Mikol Ha'amim, the Rebishter has chosen us from all nations. V'nasan lanu es Torasei. In other words, first, it was Bacha Banu Mikol Ha'amim. The Rebishter has chosen us from amongst all nations. What's the Indian of Bchira? Bchira, it's explained in Chassidus at length. When you use an expression of choosing is the taich. We have 2 things that are equal, and many things that are equal, and nonetheless, we choose one out of all. The same, when the Rebishter chose us, we were equal to all others. But once He has chosen us, and we became His nation, that is when He has given us Nasan lanu es Torasei. Nasan lanu. He has given it only to us. And what did He give us? Torasei. His Torah. His Torah He has given to us. And to nobody else. Even not to Malachim. Because all this stresses the greatness of Yidden, because Yidden are a chelik eleka mimal mamish. Once He has chosen us, we are a part of Getlichkeit. The Rebbe expressed himself, I don't know if it was here or later in the Farbrengen, Malachim probably would not mind. But the fact is that Yidden, Neshamas Yisrael, are a chelik eleka mimal mamish. And this is something which Malachim do not have. So therefore, all of this is creating an elevation in Yidden. It's creating an Asiyas Rosh in Yidden, especially now that we are on the Shabbos, and especially this Shabbos, which is within 3 days to the celebration of the Yom Tov of Shavuos. This is creating the elevation which Torah has created within Yidden. And here the Rebbe refers to Halach and Hilchah Shabbos. We just said that we are beginning to learn Ba'al Ischa, and Ba'al Ischa is the menorah, and the menorah is illuminating, bringing Lichtigkeit into an entire world, to such an extent that the world becomes a keli, which is bottle to the Lichtigkeit, which is being illuminated through the menorah. And here the Rebbe brings the Halach and Hilchah Shabbos. We know that we are prohibited to carry on Shabbos. And at the same time, Halacha tells us that when we carry something, it has to have a certain size. If one should take out a vessel, a keli, which is made to store food in it, we do not look at the size of the keli, we look at the size of and the quantity of the food that is in it. Why? Because the keli in itself is no mitzias. The entire existence of the keli was made only to carry food. Therefore, al pi halacha, we look at the ultimate goal, what this keli is made for. And being that the ultimate goal of it is to store food, we look at the fact, did the keli contain the proper amount of food that we are prohibited to carry on Shabbos, or didn't it? In other words, we go as far as the contents of the keli, and not to the keli itself. And the Rebbe is concluding out of this, as we spoke about earlier, that Shavuos is the Yontif of Chag HaMatzos. It's the Yontif for Rabbanim, those that have smicha, and they're involved practicing in the rabbinate. So it's the responsibility of the Rav to know that the fact that he has smicha, and the fact that he has a Rav, that he's a Rav, all of this is the keli. All of this is the vessel. And what primarily counts is what is the contents of the vessel. In other words, what did he gain in Zman Matan Torah? Everybody according to his shir, everybody according to his level, to his standard. But primarily what counts is, what did he gain? What did Matan Torah affect him? That, in other words, what is the contents of the Keilah? The fact that he's a Rav, that's the Keilah. But we look at the contents of the Keilah. The contents of the Keilah is, what did Matan Torah offer? The Rebbe continued that this Shabbos we begin saying a second time Pirkei Avos. And the second time Pirkei Avos, where we begin with Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai. The truth is, now we really understand the relationship from this Shabbos to Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai, because we just received the Torah at Sinai. When we say Pirkei Avos the very first time, then it comes as an introduction to what will happen later. In other words, when we begin saying Pirkei Avos right after Pesach. However, now when we are saying it the second time, especially as the Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur, Yesh Noyagin, there are those that have this custom, and we follow this custom, that we recite Pirkei Avos throughout the entire summer. So now when we begin again the second cycle of Pirkei Avos, and we begin it with the Mishnah of Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai, now we can understand why we're talking about Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai, because we just received Torah Misinai. So therefore, says the Rebbe, it's appropriate to look into the contents of the beginning of Pirkei Avos, where the Mishnah tells us V'ha'amidu talmidim harbe, that it's everyone's responsibility to put up many talmidim, many students, many disciples. And here the Rebbe spoke at very length on the importance of the fact that after Shavuos, now that we are leaving Shavuos, we are leaving the Yontif of Zman Matan Torah, that everyone should accept upon us a hisafa, an increase in the learning of Torah. And regarding the learning of Torah, says the Rebbe, we all know the importance of learning Torah. And when we're talking about increasing in learning Torah, it means not only to take off time from inyanim which we are doing matters of reshus, in other words, we are doing worldly matters, but inyanim that are permitted, but even inyanim of mitzvah, we are saying to take off time of these inyanim and to dedicate more time to the learning of Torah. Unless we're talking about such mitzvahs which can only be done at a special time. And to understand the greatness of Limud Torah, says the Alter Rebbe, we don't have to go far. We can refer to the Alter Rebbe in the very beginning of Tanya, in the first parak of Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe writes the importance of learning Torah. The Rebbe mentioned that notice that in Prince of Tanya, even in the edition of the Tanya, which was the first edition of the Tanya, which was printed in the days of the Alter Rebbe, it's on the first page, on the bottom of the first page, where the Alter Rebbe talks about the importance of learning Torah, and the opposite, the great transgression of bittul Torah, that this affects Sayin Olam Hazeh and Sayin Olam Haba. So from this we can understand how great it is in the positive sense, one who does learn Torah. And even though when we're in Yonim that are mentioned in Pirkei Avos, we refer to Pirkei Avos as Mila de Chasiduse. In other words, these are not in Yonim of Halacha. These are in Yonim that come above and beyond halacha, but once it is already entered into Pirkei Avos, and it has been established that this is part of Pirkei Avos, now here says the Rebbe, it is no longer above and beyond halacha. This becomes part of halacha, and therefore V'ha'amidu talmidim harbe is considered part of halacha. Just like we find in Shulchan Aruch also that it's brought opinions yesh noyagin. There are some that do so and so, but once it's already brought in halacha, there are some that do so and so. This opinion also becomes part of halacha. The same when we're talking about inyanim, which I discussed in Pirkei Avos. And here the Rebbe came out very, very strong on the importance of increasing in the learning of Torah, and primarily shiurim of Torah berabim. And if we find regarding Chamisha Asa B'Av, The Gemara says that from Chamisha Asa Ba'av, 15 days in the month of Av, one should make Haisafa increase in the learning of Torah. And the Gemara gives the explanation for it, because the nights are becoming longer. So if the nights are becoming longer from after the 15th of Av, it's appropriate to add in the learning of Torah. So if we find that there is a change in Teva, it should be utilized for the increase of learning Torah. How much more so when we receive the Torah right after Matan Torah, which this is a major inyan. So how much more so should this affect us that we should increase in the learning of Torah? And regarding Chamisha Sabav, we find that the Gemara uses the expression Man de Moisef Yosef, the one who is increasing, it is increased to him. And Rashi explains, what does it mean it's increased to him? It's increased to him life on his life. In other words, life is added to him. So we see from this that the inyan of being meisef and learning of Torah adds bracha to those who do the haisafa in the learning of Torah. And especially that we are so close to the days of Shavuos. We are within the 3 days of Shavuos. And this year we had Shavuos on a Wednesday. And Wednesday is the day Sheboy Nitlu HaMa'oris. This is the day when HaKadosh Baruch Hu put lichtigkeit into the world. Shnei HaMa'oris HaGdolim, the two large illuminators, the sun and the moon. And the same here when we're talking regarding Matan Torah being, the Yom Tov of Shavuos being on a Wednesday. It's also a day that's illuminating the world with Torah Shebiksav and with Torah Shebal Peh, which are also two illuminators. And the truth is that when the Rambam tells us Torah b'pirusha nitna, that when the Rebbe gave us the Torah Shebiksav, it was already included the Torah Shebal Peh in it. So the Rebbe comes out something very interesting, that when the Rebbe said Anoichi, before he continued to Lo Yelecha, in the Anoichi it was already included all the interpretation which is given. Rebbe spoke and related all the interpretation which is given in Torah Shebal Peh, and then he went back to Lo Yelecha. So what we see from all this is that Sai Torah Shebiksav and Sai Torah Shebal Peh, which is the Shnei HaMa'oris HaGdolim, both which illuminate the world, all of this was given to us this year, on this Wednesday, on this Yom Tov of Matan Torah, on the Yom Tov of Shavuos. And therefore, says the Rebbe, he's coming out, as it's called, with a new gzeira, with a new decree, urging everybody to increase in the learning of Torah, and to make shiurim berabim. And we're talking about shiurim berabim, means that it should have a participation of 10 people. And this, as the Rebbe relates, sai to men, sai to women, and sai to children. Because as we've seen in the past, that not only by men, but even by women, when they've learned shiurim and Torah, women and girls, how much life the shiurim and Torah has brought into them, and it has brought into the house. And the same thing regarding children. Even children that are up to a level of Aleph Beis, so we know that it's brought out in the Sichas of the previous Rebbe, the significance of the Aleph Beis that a child learns, that the Aleph that a Yiddish kind learns, relates to the Aleph of Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. And when we're talking about women and children, it should also be in a way with at least 10 participants. Even though we know that the concept of a minyan, of an Eida Kedosha, is only something which relates to 10 men. But nonetheless, there's the spiritual significance behind it, as it's explained in Chassidus and Kabbalah, what the number of 10 stands for, that this is something which can also relate to have groups of 10, at least of 10, when we're talking about women and when we're talking about children as well. The Rebbe asks that when he will be notified of all of these new shiurim and Torah which will be founded, this will cause a nachas ruach, a satisfaction. The Rebbe asks that he should be notified about all this. Also that people should share these Haisafis and Torah and notify it to their Rabbanim and to their Asei Lacharav. The Rebbe added on, when he will be notified about all this, even though those who will notify him will not receive a confirmation, but nonetheless, we know that when something is sent by mail, there is a chazakah that the government mail delivers the letter to its destination. The Rebbe says that all of these notifications which he will be getting about the increases in the learning of Torah, he will take them all to the oil, and it will be read there. And there, as it's customary that when something is taken to the oil, then it's ripped and it's burnt, and it, as the Rebbe used the expression, it goes up belahav hashamayim, it goes up with a flame to heaven. And all of this will add in brachas and in hashpah and the flow of brachas which comes malmaila. And as we find it spelled out so clearly in the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe, whose name was Yosef, that everything will come in a hisaf and an increase, and all of this will come in a format of Yitzchak, which Yitzchak stands for Simcha, Tzchoik for Simcha. To such an extent that just like by Avram Avinu we find that Avram was called Avram HaIvri. Why was it called Avram HaIvri? Because he was on the other side. He had the entire world against him, and he overcame everybody. The same a Yid today will be able to overcome all obstacles and all interferences and introduce all these Hisafis and learning Torah and groupings of 10. And this will bring tremendous amount of bracha, especially in this year that we are in the year of Tafshin Nun, which is accepted interpretation that it's Tehei Shnas Nisim. And as there has always been teaching that not only does it mean Nisim, miracles, it also means an union of an elevation, Nes Maloshin Haram and Maloshin upkeeping. It elevates and it escalates us. So it's definitely the proper time to demand the union of Afatzas HaMayonas Chutza, which this will lead to the coming of Mashiach. And the Rebbe is asking that this whole union of Limud HaTorah should be publicized in the strongest way possible to reach out to as many Yidden as possible to add and increase in the learning of Torah. After the Sikha, the Rebbe spoke a short Sikha, that being that we are in the Yontif, the days that are Yemei Tashlumin to the Yontif of Shavuos. Regarding Shavuos, we find that until Yid Beis Sivan, when Yidden came to the Beis HaMikdash, they were able to bring Karbanas. It's called Yemei Tashlumin. These are days when we can still pay up the Karbanas for Shavuos, because the Yontif of Sukkot and the Yontif of Pesach each lasted for a week. However, Shavuos, which the Beis HaMikdash was one day, so it didn't give all the Yidden an opportunity to be makriv of the Karbanas. So that is why until Yud Beis Sivan they would be makriv of Karbanas, and for this reason we do not say Tachnun until Yud Beis Sivan. So the Rebbe, we are still in the days of Tashlumin, to able to pay up for Shavuos. The Rebbe teaches that Tashlumin doesn't only mean Maloshin paying, Tashlumin is Maloshin Shleimus. In other words, these are days when we can come to whole and complete to achieve the message of Shavuos. So therefore we can understand the great Simcha we are supposed to be in these days, comparable to the Simcha of Simchas Torah. Therefore, says the Rebbe, it's appropriate that we should sing now a nigun of Simchas Torah, and the Simcha should be in a way just like Simchas Torah and just like Purim. The Purim Tika Simcha is an endless Simcha of Adalo Yada. The same way we should have the Simcha now. And mentioning Purim, it's brought out in the Gemara that it was not a complete Geula, because we still remained under the jurisdiction of Achashverosh. So it should lead to a complete Geula, and this is what we are waiting for now as well. It should be a final Geula, a Geula for Mashiach Tzidkenu, the Geula of Kim. It's brought out in the pasuk, Kimeitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu neflois. The Rebbe began to sing here famous Simchas Torah nigun, the Rebbe's father's nigun. The Rebbe stood up from his place and he danced with a very, very strong Simcha expression. And afterwards, the Rebbe asked for those that have submitted mashke should come up and announce about the events which they have submitted the mashke for. Amehem yiru v'chein yasu. Others should follow in their footsteps and also arrange for such type and similar type of functions. And says the Rebbe, he rotzain that before we will bring all the resolutions from this Farbrengen into reality, we will have Mashiach and Hikitzu V'ranenu Sheikh Ne'ofer, including the Frierdiker Rebbe B'toicham, and we will have Mashiach with us. Agutavach.